Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to working group call number 29. Today is Thursday, December 3rd, 2020, and it's 16 minutes past noon Eastern time. We have a few people on the call today, and I assume more will join as we move along. So we'll just start with our stand-ups. So I can start. As far as what I'm working on right now, um, well, I was working on the just getting revisions and edits in for the grant application, but that was done last week and it was approved last night, which is really exciting. So I'm sure we'll have a little more discussion about that as the call goes on. As far as other governance related things I'm working on, I've mentioned this before and we're finally moving along on this, but two of our community members, Russ and Jonathan, have worked to build a moderation bot. And we use moderation bots in Discord all the time. We use a bot called Me6. You probably see notifications from that bot. But the difference with this bot is that it should be community owned, and all of the moderation actions are public, and community members can opt into these different roles without there being a centralized gatekeeper like me, for example, assigning those roles. So I can go into more technical detail about it another time, and I can share the technical details about the bot itself with this group after this call. But I'm really excited about that. We're going to write a grant application for it to keep up development of the bot and to also compensate Jonathan for deploying the bot to the server and testing it with community members. So that is what I'm working on. No blockers yet. Something that I would welcome and encourage is participation in our test server from anyone in this group. So we have a test server where we're working with the bot and just testing out any kinks and seeing if there are any new features that we can build out for the bot before we deploy it. The goal is to deploy it by the time mainnet launches. So by the time the community technically decentralizes, we'd also have this decentralized bot to work with. And I think that testing it with the community would be really helpful because there are a bunch of stretch features that we want to add, like tallying up points for good moderation and building out a dashboard for community members to actually see the moderation work that they've put in. Totally a stretch goal, though. I think that's something that will go well into 2021, but having community members there for that feedback would be helpful. Yeah, in the next 2 weeks, I expect to submit a grant application for this, or have Jonathan submit a grant application for this. Yeah, that is my stand up. I'm just going to move along here. Jude, you're next on my screen. Do you have a stand up you'd like to share?
Some minimal progress. We're going to start moving the SIPs out of the blockchain repo and into a separate StackScale, the SIPs directory that Jason set up for me this week. And I think I don't want to speak for them exactly because it's not on this call, but I think we're going to see a couple of SIPs in the next few weeks, hopefully, that discuss possible token standards to be using on the blockchain. And to help get that going, this week I'm going to be submitting a small SIP that describes a few changes we'll want to make to our token system to make these other SIPs more tenable. But that should at least serve also as an example SIP to build off of for such future SIPs.
Thanks, Jude. Any blockers, anything this group can help with?
Nope, all good.
Cool. Harold?
Yeah, thank you. So this week I've reached out to Wilson, also Frigger, although I haven't had too much discussion with Frigger yet, and specifically about the one half of the grant that got approved. Yay, excited about both the code of conduct and the voting mechanism grant getting approved recently. And one of the things I was discussing with Wilson was any if there's any, if it's applicable, policy kit to block survey. And his response was that it's, and we can get into it a little bit later, but his response is that there may be some features added to block survey later on that make policy kit a little bit easier to use. As of right now, there may be limits to block survey. But I'm also interested in furthering discussion with Friedger in being able to wrap policy kit around, Friedger's OI chat, which has a Discord bridge. And similar to the tool that Jenny mentioned, it allows for usually different templates to put on top of your conventional moderation, um, to kind of free people out of the kind of normal benevolent dictator, which or other structures that usually come about in just the conventional moderation on platforms, which I'm sure the tool that Jenny just mentioned also addresses to some degree. But there's also some interesting things in terms of how expressive Policy Kit can get in terms of polling or even voting juries and things like this. Quorums even look possible. Date triggers look possible. And these are all things that look like they can lend themselves to some of the important KYC features that Jude felt was important for the voting mechanism when we were thinking of building it from scratch. So we're just looking at ways of being able to implement this without going from complete scratch. And so we can get into that a little bit more later, but I've been having discussions with folks on that and reaching out to folks at the helm of Policy Kit, and looking forward to what that can turn into in the future, guys. It also seems like it also lends itself to the open design that we discussed was important for the voting mechanism as well. But other than that, I have a meeting later on today with the Indigenous Council that I've mentioned here before. I'll be posting some things in a Discord so that folks can join later on. I think it's been moved up to 5 p.m. Eastern, which is 2 o'clock Pacific time now. But there'll also be recording, so I'll be keeping everybody up to date with that stuff. And any blockers as opposed to the voting mechanism, just getting feedback from folks, specifically Friedger and the folks at the helm of Policy Kit, and seeing where we can go from there in terms of any other technical expertise as we work our way through this voting mechanism. And yeah, that's what I'll be doing in the next 2 weeks, most likely, as we put together project management for the voting mechanism going forward. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Harold. Really exciting. Yeah, we'll probably discuss more on this call, but sounds like you've already got a good start on the work. Who's next? Ryan.
Sure. So I'm just moving forward with getting the info out about grants and working on getting some potential partnerships with different, like similar blockchains to, especially into Q1, see what we can do all together. So if folks have ideas and other ones that do you think would be like a good fit with us, I've been talking to blockchain. Oh, it's BSIC, blockchain. Simona Pop. I always forget what it's called after I think of it. Anyway, Social Impact Coalition. That's it. So from talking to them about potentially doing some sort of a hackathon / grant that would roll into their incubator in the spring and around agriculture, because that's what their incubator is. So I think could be some interesting ideas and things around that if that works out with them. So I'm still in conversation with Simona on that. And then I'm reaching out to other blockchains and other projects that are kind of similar in that social good space to see if there might be a fit for that, as well as researching grants in general and how grants are highlighted across all sorts of different projects. So just want to make sure we have the best that we can get for what we are doing with our project here at Stacks Foundation. But yeah, governance-wise, I'm happy that all that got approved on the grant too. It was really exciting to see. And when you have that call, Harold, I definitely want to join. Was that today at 6 or at 5 Eastern?
Yeah, sorry about the short notice. It is. It's time, 5 o'clock Eastern. I just got the email this morning that it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, definitely love to hear about that. So yeah, I'll join. Just put the link in the governance chat or whatever, and I'll make sure I'm there.
Thank you, Condi.
No problem. But yeah, and then blockers wise, just reaching out to the right people. So if you have any ideas on other projects, Harold, you might know some of those, of things that might be interested in having kind of like the foundation could be a place where it prepares a project, like they come through and then it rolls into an incubator like BSIC is doing, or just a way that we could have a hackathon like with PBC and that could roll over into a grant that could roll over into something, like just different ideas around that. So yeah, super open to any ideas people have for that. And then I'll reach out on their behalf would be great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ryan. Jason, do you have a stand-up you'd like to share?
Yeah, I can give one real quick. So, no, I'm jumping on a little late here. So, hello everybody, and congratulations again on the grant getting passed. That's awesome. That came through. And on that same note, the grant that I applied for was approved. So we're in the final stages of finishing that up. As soon as that is done, I am going to go in and just tear up the repo and really fix a bunch of things up. So I'm excited to see some of those things moving forward. I don't have any blockers at this point, and that'll pretty much be my next 2 weeks. And then, of course, with the main grant, the Can't Be Evil Code of Conduct is one that really rings true with me. So if there is somewhere I can help with that, I am happy to kind of jump in and find a role in that. And then same with the voting mechanism, Harold, if there's anything that I can do for you as well, just reach out to me. We can try and figure something out. And other than that, that would be it for me.
Thanks, Jason. Brittany, you can also give a stand-up, but I assume it would be the same as the Stacks Foundation update. So if you'd like to go into that now, you're welcome to.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I think at the Stacks Foundation, a big focus is, supporting the launch of Stacks 2.0 in January, like the more public launch. So we've been working on figuring out ways that grants can also help support that launch. So putting together a wish list of some potential grants, everything from creating content to creating tools that would help in the launch. So those obviously don't have to be done by January 15th, but coinciding with that launch, it would be great to have some grants in the pipeline that would help develop out those assets over the first couple of months after launch. So we're working on that, as well as the upgrade to grants.io. So moving from GitHub to a new platform to issue grants and hopefully make it even easier to participate, give feedback, see status of things. So this is something that's been in the works for a number of months, but Ryan's actually been doing a ton of work just making sure we get all set up with the platform and try and just continue to improve that experience. Yeah, so those are the main things from the foundation. We do have a meet the board member call tomorrow. So if anyone can join, we're hosting a crowdcast with Rodolfo, who's from Foundation Capital, who sits on the Stacks Foundation board. He'll be answering some questions. So I'd love to see you guys there too. If you have any questions or just ideas, I think it should be a good conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Brittany. All right. If there are no other, well, does anyone have any question on any of the stand-ups that were mentioned?
I have a update actually from, because I know Jason, you and I talked about Freehold and the content that's being created there and how that could be applicable for a grant potentially or some way, the curation of it. But I know that's just not kind of the focus of Freehold right now. So just letting folks on the call know, because I know Brittany just mentioned that about where that might all fit. Because I was thinking like the content's probably already there in some way, but yeah, it's just not curated at this time. I don't know if Jason, you have anything more on that has changed since last time we talked about that?
Not quite, but I do know we're slightly shifting our format and the way we release challenges and do some things. So what I will do is I will just tap Patrick and see if there's anything he can do to help with that. Because that would more than likely come from him directly, at least the initial initiative of what we're going to do with that. So I will reach out to him and try to get some more info as well. Because I like that idea. I mean, obviously, any resources we have, anything we can do together as a community is going to be the best avenue to take.
Cool, thanks.
All right. Okay. So with that, we can move into action items. Jason, so you've just gotten a grant to do this. I don't know if you want to talk more about the grant that you got approved and whether that applies to, I assume it applies to this issue.
Yeah, and actually the grant itself has a whole bunch more info, but the basic idea is that like some of our main areas of sharing information, like where we used to upload the videos on YouTube, that kind of fell off a little bit. Where the notes were stored and what was downloaded from each meeting kind of fell off a bit. So I wanted to come through and get everything completely updated. And now that we have the foundation in place and we have this kind of, we have such a better cadence now with how everything is working. So I wanted to take the time to really document and make it easy for anyone to jump into those roles or update these items. But to do that requires catching back up. So that's mainly the goal of this grant, is to go through these different parts of our repository, of our process, and of our team, get us back up to date, and to hopefully leave a way for anybody to continue maintaining that on a one-by-one basis, because it's a lot easier when you have one compared to having to do many.
Got it. Thanks, Jason. Do we want to close do you want to close this now that you or open up like a new issue that sort of lists out what you plan to, or that just copies over what is listed in the grant?
Yeah, we can definitely close this one out. This was more just to let everybody in the group know, and just kind of talk about it as a group. And what I'm going to do from here is continue to give updates. So each of the milestones I've set forth are pretty much 1 week milestones that may happen a little faster, a little shorter. And in doing that, I'll give everybody kind of updates on what's going on, and we'll be aware of everything as it goes too. So that's perfectly fine. There's going to be a GitHub project board as well that tracks the issues and things I'm working on.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. So I assume most of these here are going to be encompassed by the work that you're doing with the grant, right? These first
Yes.
three.
So yeah, number 116, 104, 79, and I don't know if 14, I don't remember if I wrote that one in there too, but yeah, basically as many as possible, I'm going to knock out and kind of do an overall look at things.
Okay. Well, so I think that we can close those as well, and I can do that after the meeting. The other two that are still here, Harold, is there, I opened this issue a few weeks ago. I don't know if you want to close it, or if you want to add anything to it, or open up a new issue. And I think that I had conflated a couple of things when I opened this as well. So maybe it's worth closing.
It's fine. It may have been due to earlier conflations of myself, but it's possible to close this, and then I can start a new issue, maybe pertaining to the meeting today, including the recording today, or something like. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. It feels good to close out all these issues, everyone. And this one, so Lane has been on in a little while, so we can probably keep this open. But just really quickly, we did actually, Harold, I think that this is where you found out about Policy Kit. Right, so,
yeah. It's actually, it actually goes in line with some of our earlier research in the repo from Primavera, because she's associated with MetaGov, and Policy Kit is one part of MetaGov. Primavera is out of Berkman Klein, and then I think Eric Tan is out of Oxford, and they work on a lot of the blockchain-based stuff that they hope to be able to do along with Policy Kit. But yeah, there is some overlap there, and there's even some overlap there with what I just heard from Brittany, because I was thinking of grants that can go along with mainnet launch as well, and maybe even something along the lines of collaborations with MetaGov for some things that Friedger's been talking about, and what we got a preview of with one of the last Blockstack events about fair launches. And so I think there's some collective incentives there to maybe put together a wish list grant around and maybe facilitate some of the collaboration with MetaGov, somewhere along the lines of what Ryan was speaking about earlier. And so, yeah, I think that there's some overlapping things going on with the voting mechanism that we're already getting underway.
Okay, thanks for the context, Harold. I think we can probably, I think rather than closing these issues, Jason just messaged me with a good suggestion that I think applies to this as well. Instead of closing this, we can swap out the meeting action label for something a little more relevant. So this could be like reference or in progress or something like that. And we can figure that out asynchronously. Great. So I think that does it for the meeting action items. Now moving on to discussion items. So I just opened this one and I figured I'd open it to get discussion going. As I know that Harold and Juliet are already thinking about this, but just the grant project management. I think that we have we're pretty ambitious with having a goal of completing a lot of this work by the end of Q4 2020. So that is a question as well, whether we want to reevaluate and give ourselves a little more time, or if we think that's possible, then that's totally fine. I think for each of these work streams in the grant proposal, we've mentioned that we want to complete them by the end of Q1 2021, but we should have working drafts of both the code of conduct mechanisms by the end of Q4. So that essentially gives us the rest of this month. So if we think that that is realistic, probably worth getting started on figuring out weekly goals and tracking these work streams on GitHub. But yeah, those are the questions that I had. And from there, Harold and Juliet, it's whatever you see is best for each of these projects.
Hello, everyone. Just jumping in on this. I'm going to be setting up project management for this over the weekend, and then have something that I'm going to post on Monday. I have some ideas and vision of being able to have everything transparent and be easily shared with the community. So including, Trello boards and things like that. So just wanted to jump in with that.
Well, thanks, Juliet. Is there any help that this group can provide with you in getting started, or do you just plan to get started first and we'll go from there?
I think I'm just going to get started with some of the ideas that I have, and then pull everybody in on, beginning of next week. Everybody that wants to participate, and then, really make it transparent for the community to add their opinions and sort of approach it from a RFC sort of perspective in the beginning, so people can put in their ideas, and then just really keeping all the steps transparent and open, and so it's really clear to folks what we're doing as the governance community on this project, and what everybody who's wants to work on it is doing. So that's kind of what I was thinking about last night, and apologies to everyone who I was bugging late in the evening their time last night.
No problem. Thanks, Juliet. Harold, any help that we can provide for you as you get started on your work stream?
Yeah, if anybody's interested in Policy Kit or has any ideas of besides ones that I've presented, and there's another issue around here somewhere. I forget exactly which tab it's under, or what number it is, but it may be closed now actually. But yeah, I can reopen an issue, or I actually can comment here on this issue with some links to the white paper from Policy Kit. And if anything rings a bell, feel free to just help collaborate. And I'm very limited technically, so anybody who feels up to the task, I think Policy Kit takes very simple technical expertise, and so I'm planning to tackle it myself if someone else doesn't jump in. So yeah, that's the only blockers or things I could think of with when it comes to Policy Kit or the voting mechanism. And if there's any things outside of Policy Kit that comes to people's minds when it comes to some of the things that we wanted to achieve with the voting mechanism, I'm all ears. So yeah, thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Harold. Jude, I hate to put you on the spot, but since you sort of developed the original idea over there, was there anything that you wanted to add in terms of the types of mechanisms we start to test? I know that you'd come up with an original formula, and we've talked about quadratic voting as a group, and I think in the proposal we're meant to choose 2 more to test with the community. I don't know if you have any suggestions on the direction we should go there.
You could do something like maybe ranked choice voting as one option. Another option could be a different weight mechanism. Like you could just do like a baseline. I don't think we're testing at all, for example, is like, you know, 1 person, 1 vote, and then just see how that goes without any consideration at all to like how long you've been in the project or something like that.
Cool. All right, thanks. Take that into consideration. Any other questions or comments on the project management of this grant? All right, great. Also, congrats everyone. This is really exciting to get this approved. And both of these projects are definitely needed, especially with the mainnet launch on the horizon. So thanks everyone for all the work that you're putting in, and a big thanks in advance to Juliet and Harold for taking the lead on these.
Yay. Stacks Foundation monster eats grants and spits out money for you. Or something like that, as long as they're good. You know what I'm saying. Thank you for submitting it. Really happy that the foundation was able to support. I think they're really important. So
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, so for this one, I think we mentioned this on a previous call, but this was just a thought I had. I don't think that we're going to have the time to do this between now and the mainnet launch. So I was thinking for issues like this, we could label it with like a backlog sort of label. I don't know if anyone is opposed to that, because we've got a lot of good ideas that we're not necessarily able to address immediately. So, and rather than closing them, we can just
Actually,
sort of,
yeah,
yeah.
and for this one, it's milestone 4. I went ahead and threw it in there. So we're going to look at the Stacks design standards, and I plan to circulate it with the community and decide, because this original icon was just something random that came up from a JDenticon. Like it was, you know, we put in StacksGov and this is what it spit out. Looks good with the triangles, but that is part of what I'll be tackling as well. And I just started putting together that project board, so I just dragged it over.
Okay. Sounds good, Jason. So yeah, I'll leave it up to you to decide if this deserves a different kind of label, and it sounds like you're going to tackle it through your grant work anyway. I don't know. This has been up here for a while. I don't know if we want to go into this. Don't necessarily need to, maybe.
I think unless there's any new updates from anyone, we could leave that one as is.
No new updates. Do you want to go through these next few ones, Jason? I think they're probably related to.
Sure, and those will likely be related to the grant as well. Just the idea of developing specific roles, much like we have a moderator. You know, why not have a secretary responsible for notes, a publisher responsible for putting content that we have out to the forum or somewhere else more accessible. So just kind of creating standardized roles, but in bite-sized pieces.
Cool. Thank you. The town hall, you know, we've talked about this a few times. Also possibly a backlog issue for now.
I think so, and I imagine, I don't know if we would expect the foundation to kind of own that one and set it up, or if that was something we were going to do as the community. So there would be some basic decisions there, but I think it would be a backlog item for now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I know that, so I coordinate with Ryan around the town hall for the entire Stacks community and around the Stacks ecosystem calls, just to make sure there isn't a ton of overlap and we're not exhausting community members with all these different events, which I'm sure happens anyway. But if we wanted to have a different town hall, specifically say for governance, I think that would be a different discussion. If this were more of like a general public call, as is mentioned, maybe there's room to sort of coordinate and add more updates to the existing calls. So again, we can figure this out asynchronously unless someone has strong opinions.
Hey, hi, everybody there. In this subject, I think that probably as the community is taking over the several activities that they used to be, you know, all concentrated or centralized and in the PVC originally, you know, so then it was decentralized for the community. I think that as a way of changing culture, probably is a good idea to try to develop this understanding and in general community that this has like a governance and all these aspects of a community. And so this is a matter of education, because still, if we think that we own the whatever we have done before, then and then now the community has to be the owner. So still there will be a kind of a friction of this transition. So the way to develop this community, you know, the transition to the community has to be empowered by the general knowledge of the governance. So the idea is to not only to invite for the working group of the governance, but also for the general, you know, not everybody will like to be there participating in this, but at least, you know, get to know that this kind of governance in behind. There's an institution, there's people that are and committed to this governance laws or whatever. Well, that's my. So we have to try to accomplish this, hopefully before the launch of the mainnet.
That's a good point, Philip. Do you think that it would suffice to have like a governance section in one of these ecosystem or town hall calls that are already running, or do you think that this should be completely community organized?
I agree. Just with the section will be sufficient initially, because this is a change of culture. Still, you know, our baby was born, and then we don't want to pass the baby to the community, because so it's difficult. It's not easy. So it's a new thing. It's not been before. You know, it's in the world. It's a new concept that and also Blockstack on Stacks, and then they change the name, and you know, who has to define the concept, the technologies, and all that, and still have the challenge to name. Should we use Blockstack? Should we use Stacks? Should we use Foundation? You know, this still, you know, so it's a good idea to have a section on this. You know? Well, that's what I feel is yes.
Thanks, Philip. Yeah, noted. And thank you, Jason, for taking this this comment down. I think that's definitely doable, unless Ryan or I were to be opposed. I'm not. I don't think Ryan would be either, but I don't want to speak for Ryan.
No. For me, like even with the call to the evangelist and ecosystem call, Lewis and I talked about having it be community moderated, like in time, and having as much as possible be, because I want the foundation stuff, and I've talked to Brittany about this, but not as much to everybody else, about it being really grassroots. So because it is a user owned internet, that means the users have to step up, but we have to make it so they can. So that's important. That's an ongoing project for sure. And I think these town halls could be, I mean, it's different. There's just different ways of organizing information that, yeah, I definitely don't want to have meeting fatigue. That was part of the reason why these two today got merged together. But yeah, doing it in the best way possible for the community is really important to me. And I think Jenny too.
Yeah, you're right. It is, and I think a governance section makes sense, especially now that we do have so many updates. Jude mentioned the work that's going into the SIPS process. I know we've been talking about token standards, all of that. I mean, the voting mechanism, this moderation bot, all of that is part of community governance, and it definitely warrants its own section. And would probably be a pretty long section too. So I don't think there's any problem in adding that to a future town hall or ecosystem call. Thanks, Philip, for raising that.
Yeah, it's definitely the ecosystem call is for sure open to that kind of thing. Like it's really open to anybody who wants to present on anything. So
okay, so we've noted that down, and I think it can eventually, or after this, it can become a meeting action item. Actually, this is kind of related, the governance working group roadmap. So Lane isn't here, but I know that this is something that other group members have expressed interest in. I don't know how we want to approach this, whether this is a backlog item or something that can be incorporated to one of our current work streams. I'll open it up to discussion.
I'll go ahead and start on that one because this is part of what we're trying to, or what I'm trying to kind of orchestrate and put together, is to make some easy ways for small obtainable goals and things that we can do. I'm going to leave this one open for now because I'm still trying to decide where it fits in with my project scope and what I'm working on, but definitely open to comments, thoughts, and anything from anybody else as we go along. And I think we've already done so much as a group that I just see us opening up potential to do even more.
Cool, thanks, Jason. I can add some comments here afterward too. I was thinking a little bit about, so internally we use OKRs to organize our work, and I've wondered whether that would be a good model for the governance group or for community groups, just having an objective for a quarter and having cascading key results from there, and whether coming up with objectives and key results would help us generate a roadmap more easily. So I don't know if that's the best idea. It's just the one that I'm familiar with, but I can add that as a note and idea for this afterward.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at where we started to where we are now, even the thought of action items and discussion items and the way we're trying to break up what we can do versus what we want to talk about versus how we want to handle things as a group is constantly evolving, as it should, because that's the only way we're going to continue improving as well.
it'd be very cool too in time, because if the governance group ends up having like a protocol that works, it could be something that other new community groups use as well. Like, or potentially if it works for them, but it'd be like, here, try this and see if this works for you.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree.
Okay, so leave that open. Fireside chat. Oh, no, I skipped one. Harold, is there anything you'd want to, we discussed this earlier. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add here, or you mentioned opening new issues to cover updates.
Yeah, I think on the other one, I might just make a comment somewhere. And I could just make a comment here, updating for today's meeting that I mentioned, the recording, and also I can put something in there before the meeting starts. And just to refresh folks that maybe weren't on the call when going over this initially a little while ago, these are, hopefully can be turned into SIPs. I'm looking forward to getting examples of the first SIPs that we get through, so that we have some good, a good guideline. I know there was some work on that earlier that I was paying attention to, and so I'll be paying attention to the first examples that we have, and anybody who's interested in helping me turn this draft into real SIPs is please add here. And the gist of it is the importance of unconventional approaches to governance. Primavera De Filippi at a Harvard research in blockchain has been a core reference for us in some of our early research in this working group. You feel free to go back and look at some of that amazing work she's done that we've linked to in the repo somewhere. I know Juliet has put a good article from Primavera recently, and I know it touches on some of the same tones that I want to bring up in this SIP, which is the importance of an authentic Indigenous dialogue. But there's also some, interesting things that go along with, what we're calling it authentic Indigenous dialogue, which is unique jurisprudence and autonomy that you know, there's a lot of nuances too in understanding the differences between band councils in Canada, tribal councils in the U.S., and probably nuances around the world in terms of uh, the, uh, the different degrees of autonomy that different indigenous nations can have. But it's an important dialogue to kick off in when we're discussing technologies like blockchain, and which can affect, you know, the future of you know, blockchain-based world trade, or you know, the internet alone. When you talk about machine learning and IoT is going into the next iterations of industry, digital fabrication and whatnot. To have an honest and genuine pathway for you know, indigenous dialogue on their terms, right? Their governance structures, not necessarily the bureaucracy that we put ourselves through in conventional Western structures, but finding, you know, authentic governance structures of the indigenous kind, and finding ways to incorporate those protocols into blockchain protocols in some type of on and off chain combination would be ideal, hopefully. And you know, things like this, interesting conversations like this is what this SIP is about, and what it aims to you know, address in a comprehensive way. And I have you know, indigenous SIP, and I also have Focus SIP, and also which includes the Indigenous Council. But there's also a SIP that references digital fabrication networks that are around the world right now, that have kind of grown out of these maker communities, and are very much focused on the future of industry in a lot of ways, with, especially as the pandemic has sped up you know, in-home micro factories and crazy things like this. So these are the exciting things that I think the grant can help make clearer as well. That we hope focusing on education and STEAM and indigenous modes of production and prosumption and things like this. But yeah, I'll stop there. If anybody's interested, please join the discussion, and I'll keep everybody updated with the meeting today and the recording. But thank you, Jenny, for the time.
Thanks, Harold. I'd really be interested in working with you on the SIPs, if only just to like understand that process better, but also because I think that our protocol could really benefit from the ideas you've mentioned. So I'll connect with you offline about it. Thank you. Okay, so last, we're running a little over time, so we can go over these quickly. Any news on the Fireside Chat series, or is that another backlog sort of item?
No updates that I've heard, so that would be more of a backlog type thing until we decide on a speaker or try to bring someone in.
Okay. And Jason, I assume you can speak to these as well as part of your work.
Yeah. So last two there is just the idea of sharing a Stacks ID, or how that would look, which is probably something that would happen in later stages. Or I just like the idea of like coming back into the ecosystem and having something we could all use. Let's say we wanted a block survey account. How do we share that among the group without sharing keys, and some of those questions? But it's more of a big picture question. So I don't know if there's an easy answer to that one. And the last one around languages and translations, again, was just our learnings around the survey, and how, you know, communicating everything in English, we're cutting out a large part of our audience. So as we're doing things, we want to make sure to support that international stance wherever we can. And that would be the big update on those two.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, this is definitely a big picture sort of later issue to think about, because I don't know, and well, Jude, maybe you can speak to this. I don't think our namespace system will change immediately post mainnet launch, right?
Yeah, it'll remain largely, it's backwards compatible with the current system. There's some questions unresolved right now as to whether or not it's possible for namespaces price curves to be updated later. And I think that that's an option we should support as an additional feature. But it's important to keep in mind, though, that unlike the previous system, we're not inherently married to BNS. Like, you can build an alternative naming system with different properties and features depending on the problem you want to solve, because now we have a full smart contract system.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to solve every single problem with naming right now. We can always defer until later, until we actually know about the problem.
Okay, thanks, Jude. All right, okay, so just to be mindful of everyone's time, we've gone through action items, discussion items. Any burning questions that we want to address before we end this call?
So the code of conduct is going through. That's what I saw that looks like we are going to advance on that, isn't it?
Yeah, and Juliet is taking the lead on that. So actually, this is good for a summary. So,
Congratulations.
we got our grant application approved last night. Juliet will be leading development of the code of conduct for the Stacks community, and Harold will be leading development of a voting mechanism for the Stacks community. And between now and our next meeting, which is actually fairly close to the end of Q4 2020, there should be progress on putting up some sort of public project management board for each project. Juliet will mention that she'll be getting started on that this weekend, and Harold will be as well. And anyone who would like to work on either of those work streams is welcome to. And I think it's best to connect with either Juliet or Harold if you are interested in either of those. And Jason also got his grant application approved to do a bunch of cleanup of the repo, as well as consolidation of resources and updating a much more streamlined process. So we'll have a much more streamlined standard operating procedures process or information laid out there. So thank you to Jason for that. Really excited to see the progress that you make there. And on my end, I'm working on a Discord moderation bot that I would love people to get involved in if you have the time. Yeah, that's what was top of mind for me. I'm hoping I'm not missing anything else that we discussed. And if I am, we can share that in Discord. All right, everybody. Great to chat with you all as always.
Thank you kindly, everybody.
Thank you. And yeah, it's really
Nice to
exciting to
be
feel like
nice to be again in this meeting. Thank you.
See you in 2 weeks, if not sooner.
You can 2 weeks.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
See you later.
Yeah.